Yo, what's up, comrades? Welcome back to another fairy tale. We're halfway through the original series, and then there's 100 year quest. So, volume 33 here, we pick up at the Magical Games. And how are things going for Fairy Tale? Pretty bad, pretty bad. They're in last place, both teams. And so, over at the bar place where all the Fairy Tale guys are staying, Kana's getting drank like usual, saying everything's pathetic and whatnot. And then there's a lot of back and forth. Gray and Lucy are not there. They're back at the inn, and they both look like super sad hippopotamus. They have a discussion about like their losses and disappointing people and whatnot. And then Juvia has this like crazy dream that Lucy, or crazy daydream that Lucy and Gray are like fucking, and then they both are at the end and they're like, what's her and her like crazy nonsense? And then Makarov shows up and he's like, we refuse to surrender, we're gonna do great. And then everyone like parties and laughs and plays, and Mystigan's like watching, and the bartender's like, didn't these guys lose everything? We then head over to the king. Your Majesty, does he have a name of some sort? And that creepy Zareth lover knight guy is there, Bacchus. Oh, wait, not Bacchus. Bacchus is a member of the Service Guild. Chevalier Captain. What is this dude's name again? Anyway, he's like still being creepy, and he's like, yes, everything is almost complete. And then back in the bar, there's like people fighting and whatever, and then Bacchus is there. Who's Bacchus? Bacchus, like I said, is a member of a different group. Let's see. And he wants to do a drinking contest with Kana, so then they drink, but Bacchus ends up winning, and everyone's like shocked because no one ever defeats Kana in drinking. And then he takes her top as like a prize, and then some dudes try to stop her, and then he beats the shit out of them, even though he's like super drunk, because we find out from Urza that his whole combat thing, his magic, is like drunken monk fighting magic. And so Urza gives him like a glare, and she's like, he was strong before, but it's been 7 years, so he's probably even stronger now. Like, he's an S-class wizard from Quattro Cerberus, and talks about his like drunken hawk magic from like some school. We then head over to Wendy, and Carla's talking to the old lady about what's going on and her like premonitions, whatever. And we see an image of like the palace collapsing, and we see Lucy with her giant awesome tits being like, oh no, and she's the only one left alive. So the next day comes, and it's time for the competition, and the night before, Natsu and Gajil had sworn that they would be the ones to represent their teams and that nothing was going to stop them or whatever. And unfortunately, the contest is to run along these like giant chariots, and whoever gets to the end first wins, obviously, and then going from there. So Natsu and Gajil are both sick from movement, and so they're like barely holding it together, and everyone's like, what the fuck, why? And then guess who else is there? That's right. Sorry. The other dragon, the other dragon guy, Sting, is there from Sabretooth, and he is also affected. So apparently everyone, all true all true dragon wizard, all true all true dragon eaters have motion sickness, and so they're all in last place. And ahead of them is this creepy looking dude, Raven, and Bacchus is there, and then like Ichio and some other people. And so they end up like fighting for first place and going back and forth, and it looks like Ichio's gonna win. And then Bacchus like destroys one of the chariots, and he's laughing and running ahead. And there's some girl who has like some other kind of magic, and then there's like the Raven guy who is in head, who looks like a snake, and then Bacchus ends up winning and getting them 10 points, and everyone's like stunned. But that's not the end of the race, because we still have the dragon guys. And so they're all racing for third, like last, second to last, and third to last. And Natsu just happens to have the most gumption, and so he's able to get third to last place barely by just like struggling and calling out, and he's screaming about Fairy Tale and how he'll never give up, and Fairy Tale will be one of the best, and he has to move forward, and everyone in the crowd is like crying and happy and stuff. And then he gets it, and then Gajil, and then Sting gets last place, and he's like pathetic because Natsu says something about doing it for his friends. So Fairy Tale's still in last place, but now they have some points. And then Natsu and Gajil are like passed out because of the sickness was so strong and whatnot. and and the old lady's like, it'll be fine, they're going to be okay. And Wendy's doing much better too. And then we get to the battle section for day 2, and we have, his name is Kuro Hebi. He's like he literally looks like a snake. And then from Lamia scale, we have the Toby guy, if you remember Toby. And so, because Toby's from all the way back with the Leon when they were trying to resurrect the giant demon and stuff. And then we see our friend, what's her name? Flair. And she looks like she got the shit beat out of her. And she looks over and sees Lucy, and Lucy looks at her and is like, what the hell? And then the other members of the head of like the Raven Guild guy, the main guy, like grabs her and like threatens her because she's like causing problems or whatever. So then we get the shonen anime battle, and the snake guy beats the shit out of Toby, and he's like, oh my gosh. And then there's something about him having a sock, and like, what's the sock? And he's like, I'm missing a sock. And then the Raven guy is like Kurebi is like, oh, your sock's right here, and you're wearing it like a necklace. And he takes it and then he shreds it, and he's like, no. And then he beats him, and the guy's all sad about this. Next up is Bacchus from Quattro Cerebus. Oh yeah, and the king, when he was talking to the guard captain, he was saying, I want a battle between Bacchus and like E something from Fairy Tale. And so the guy is like, all right, got it. And so the king shows up. He's like, oh, I'm very excited for this battle between Urza and Bacchus. And the guard captain is like, Urza? I thought you meant the other guy. And everyone's like, what other guy? And it's like, Elfman. And Elfman's like, what? And so he heads out there, and then the Bacchus guy is pretty overconfident, and Elfman's like, I'm a man, I'm going to beat you. And so they start kind of like fighting, and meanwhile, Natsu gets like a weird premonition, so he runs back to check on Wendy, and when he gets there, he sees these doofuses like carrying her and Carla off. And then we get like a splash page, which has like a super sexy image of Lucy. And I will keep bringing this up because that's the most important part about this whole anime, besides being hype. No, the most important part is Lucy, then hype. Hype is very good as well. So then Natsu runs at these guys, and they got guns and stuff, but he just beats the shit out of them, beats the shit out of some more guys, and then he grabs and rescues Wendy. Meanwhile, in the battle, it's not going great for Elfman. Bacchus is clearly like a more powerful fighter, but Elfman's not going to give up. So he starts doing some transformation, and he's going back and forth with Bacchus, and Ursa's watching and making commentary, and she says something about like he's beating up on Elfman, and the guy hasn't even started drinking yet. He's not even like on his full powers. But Elfman keeps getting knocked down and keeps getting back up, and so finally Bacchus is like, all right, fine. So he drinks, and he's like, all right, now he's powered up, and now he's going to beat the shit out of Elfman. And so he does like some super powerful attack against him with his drunk powers, but then he ends up hurting himself because Elfman transformed into some sort of defensive creature that does like damage to anyone who attacks him. And his whole thing is like, I can't beat you in a fight, but you're gonna hurt yourself trying to fight me, and so it's whoever can last the longest. So now it's a battle of like attrition to see who can hold out the longest. And so they go back and forth against each other, but really it's just Elfman like holding strong, and the guy's just beating the shit out of him. And you get to a point where Elfman transforms back, and they're both like exhausted looking, and Elfman falls to his knees, and Bacchus is like, haha, I won, and they're about to announce him victor, but then he passes the fuck out, and Elfman's still kneeled, but he's still awake. So it's like, bo, he's down, Bacchus is down, and it's like, oh, Elfman wins. And he like makes this great cry, and it's fucking awesome looking. Meanwhile, Natsu has arrived, and he's like, yeah, heck yeah, Elfman, with Wendy and Grenadier and Carla and stuff, and they're like chit-chatting about how these guys are like, oh, Raventel hired us to do this thing, and it's like, fucking Raventel is sketchy as shit. But then we find out shortly that Raventel is being like, they're like a patsy, because they're not actually doing anything like that untoward. I mean, they're doing stuff that's untoward, but not like, they're not trying to kidnap Wendy and stuff, because this actually the card captain's doing it. And he finds out about the operation, and it's like, oh, they weren't trying to capture Wendy, they were trying to capture Lucy. So this chapter had two confusions. First, it was supposed to be Urza versus Bacchus, and it wasn't. And then the second thing is they grabbed Lucy. They didn't grab Lucy, they grabbed Wendy, because they were both in like, they were supposed to be in like the medical tent or whatever, but they weren't. So then Fairy Tale meets up. Elfman's beat the shit out of, so he's now in the infirmary, and so they're all chit-chatting there about what's going on. And then the Raijin Guild, which is like Freed, Elf Lady, and Bicklow, are all going to hang tight and guard the medical tent, make sure they're all fine. And it's not because Elf Lady has a crush on Elfman and that they're going to date, which Bicklow is like, ooh, you guys want to sleep? He's injured. You can't be trying to fuck him while he's trying to sleep. And she's like, no, get out of here, blah, blah, blah. It's so good. We then get some conversations about what's going on, and they kind of figure out that Lucy was the real target all along, right? Which is confusing because the other guy attacked Wendy and took her magic away in the first place. So like, why? Like, what's going on with all this stuff? And then Carla reveals like her dream about like the Capitol collapse. Oh no, she doesn't. She thinks about the Capitol closing, and then Wendy being like confused and super whatever. And then we head back over to the games, and this time it's Mira Jane versus the Blue Pegasus lady, Jenny, she was doing the announcing in the previous episode, and both like blonde bombshells. And Mary Jane was like an old woman compared to Jenny, but since they've been gone for 7 years, she's now the new hot stuff that's on like the cover of all the magazines and whatnot. So instead of having a battle, they have like fucking like fan service off, and so all the guys in the crowd are like, oh yeah, this is awesome. So we get lots of sexy shots of Mary Jane and of Jenny like wearing swimsuits, doing like sexy poses. Then they're wearing like school uniforms and then dominatrix stuff and like cat costume and all this stuff. And then at some point, Jenny challenges Mary Jane that whoever loses has to do like a naked spread in like Wizards magazine, and everyone's like, yes, no matter what, we win. And then you have the guy who's like the journalist character, and he's up in he's like the guest announcer for the day, and he's like, oh, I'm so psyched, this is the best thing ever. And then Jenny transforms into like her battle form, because I guess she's got similar magic to Mary Jane, but then Mary Jane transforms into her demon form. And even though they had an agreement that they were not going to fight, it's like, all right, it's fighting time. So Mary Jane just beats the shit out of her like immediately. And so she wins. And then Jenny's like, no! And then all the guys are like, yay! And then the guard captain guy, Arcadios, he gets approached by some minister, and they have a chit-chat about like what's going on, about the kidnapping, about the funding increases, and about Eclipse. And the minister's like, I'm totally opposed to this. And Arcadios is like, oh, fuck yourself, it's happening. We got a plan, and it's going to happen. And they need a celestial wizard to do something. So it's going to cost the life of a girl, but that cost the life of the girl is more important than like, I mean, her life is not as important as like the kingdom and all that stuff. And then Mary Jane like wanders back over to Laxus and Mystigan and like Juvia and Gajil, like her team B, and they have like a conversation. She's like, oh, teehee, I'm so embarrassed. And they're like, something. But there's one more battle to go. This time it's between Kagura, who's like the main fighter for Mermaid Heel, and then Yukino, who is from Sabretooth. And she is a celestial wizard, and they're both like sexy babes again. So they go out to do battle, and we get a fun anime shonen battle. And everyone's been doing like contests throughout the day, like, oh, if you win, I get this. If you win, I get that. And then let's see, what is her deal? Place spec, beg your pardon, no interest to me. Okay, they place their lives on the line, I guess. Is that right in your head? Seems confidence. Okay, and then Yukino starts summoning creatures with like the gates, and she's really strong. Like Lucy, she can summon like 2 at a time as well. But Kagura is like just dodging around, and she's got a katana, but she hasn't taken out of her scabbard. And so she's fighting, and then she they're summoning back and forth, and then Kagura just beats the shit out of her. And at some point, her teammates at Mermaid Tail are talking about each other, or someone's saying something to somebody, and they're like, oh, she's not taking this battle too seriously. It's like, what do you mean? It's like she hasn't even taken the sword out of her sheath. Like she only does that if she's going to like take the battle seriously. And so she beats her without like really even trying, because she's super strong. Like her and Urza are probably on the same level, if not like Kagura's like might be stronger at this point than Urza. And Urza's talking about this with like Lucy and some of the other members, and then Sting gets like super concerned because Sabretooth got defeated, and that's twice in one day they got defeated. So they went from being like the top guild to like not getting like no points essentially, which is super concerning. And then Arkodos, the guard captain, is like, oh, there's another celestial wizard, so even if we can't get Lucy, we can get her. This is excellent. And then Mystigan, who's actually Gajil, is like very concerned about what's going on. He's like, I haven't sent that much magical energy as much as I did most years, but that's strange. Like it's already the second day, and like something is clearly amiss with what's happening here. So now we've reached the end of day 3, and not much has changed. Raventail is still in first place, so then followed by Sabretooth and Lamia Scale, but then everyone else is kind of mixed around. Like Mermaid Heel has moved up to 4th, and Quattro, oh, that's right. The challenge Elf Maid and Fairy Tail had to do was that Quattro Cerberus has changed their name to Quattro Puppy. They've now dropped to 12 points, which equals them out with Fairy Tail A and B. So there's like a 3-way tie at last place, and then Sabretooth and Lamia are tied for 2nd, and Raventail is like dominating with like way more points. Anyway, Urza is meeting up with Gajil. They're talking about the magic, talking about everything he's kind of figuring out, and then she asks him not to like overdo it, and there's a conversation about Ultir and how she's like making sure that she doesn't. And then Urza's heading home, and then there's like some shady figure watching over her, and she calls out to her, and it ends up being Miliana. Oh, you remember Miliana? She was like a little cat girl. Now she's got giant tits. Awesome. I love this. I love this manga so fucking much. Oh, she's so hot. And they hug it out, and then they start chit-chatting about everything that's going on and how she went on a journey, and then she ended up joining Mermaid Tail, and they talk about like their other friends, like the Squareface guy and whatnot. And then we go to Sabretooth, and the Sabretooth leader is some crazy-looking like Azuma dude who his master name's Master Ziema. There's so many names. There's like no way. I apologize. I keep like forgetting names. Anyway, he's eating grapes and talking about how they're trash. Now he's super mad, and he calls out Sting, and Sting gets like one more chance to like not fuck it up, and then he calls Yukino forward and throws grapes at her and is like, "You're out of the guild." And he like strip off her clothes. She takes off her clothes, and we see her nice tits. And then he's like, "We're taking the brand mark off." So she gets rid of it, and then she bows and thanks him, and he's like, "Get the hell out of here, trash." And then Sting and Rogue are like talking afterwards, and Sting's kind of a little upset about this. Clearly, he had a little. Wait, is that what a guild is? Oh no, Rogue is like slightly concerned about what's going on, but Sting is kind of an asshole about it. And then Fro, who is Rogue's like Extilia cat guy who wears a frog costume, is like, "Oh, I'm weak. Am I going to be kicked out too?" And then Rogue's like, "Frost, you're not going anywhere." And he's like, "Yay!" And then we skip over to Natsu, Wendy, and Carla, Happy, and Lucy, and they're all walking around talking about stuff. And about how everyone's it's like hard to sleep because Gray's always getting naked and Natsu snores and everything, and then there was like a whole thing with Leon and Juvia and Gray, and then Urza, it's like, "Where's Urza? She's off on her own." And then someone's like, "She's not by herself." And then Happy's like, "Kiss, kiss, kiss, hoo, 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 hoo." And then they see Yukino, and she's just standing there wearing like her normal clothes, and they're like, "Oh, what's going on?" Meanwhile, back over with Urza and we'll just call her Millie. Millie, they're like chit-chatting and being very cozy, and then they talk about Kagura and the sword and everything, and then Millie is like, "Oh, everyone in Mermaid Tail is dedicated to the death of Gajil after he like escaped because he's done awful things to everybody. So like, that's what they want to do. Like they'll never forgive and all this stuff, and that's why they wanted to enter this guild because Kagura also wants to kill Jalil, not Gajil. Gajil is the Dragon Slayer for Iron. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Anyway, back over at like the hotel. And Lucy's speaking with Yukino, and she's like, "I have some business with you. I got kicked out of Sabretooth. I have these twin keys I want to give to you," and all that. And then they go back and forth about Lucy's whole bang when it comes to celestial spirits and how they belong with who they belong to, that she's not going to take them. She's, that they have to want and they have to be friends and all that stuff. And then if she had these two other keys, she'd have all 12 keys. And there's Orpheus, who's like the 13th key she also has, but I don't think she was offering that for some reason. Let's see. The keys of the twin Ithiode Palace and the Scale Palace. Yeah. Okay. And then she's like, "Thank you so much, but no, I can't do it. Like, you need to do your own thing." And they talk about how there's not that many Celestial Wizards left, that they've been dwindling for a long time. And then there was like some sort of Zentopia incident, and that these two might be the last two Celestial Wizards in the whole world. And then, finally Lucy talks her into like holding on to her stuff, and they'll meet again. And then we get a sexy shot of Lucy like getting naked. Oh, so good. We get a couple actually, and then she's taking a shower, and we get like some shade while she's talking to like Wendy about celestial spirits and everything else. Natsu, on the other hand, runs off to talk to Yukino, and he's like, "Hey, I want to apologize. I thought you were an asshole, but you're a really nice person," and all this stuff. And you something. And then she starts crying, and he's like, "Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to something." And she's like, "No one's ever considered my feelings. I wanted to join Sabretooth, and once I lost, they made me quit." Oh, I think this is where he finds it out. And they took my guild mark, and it was horrible and shameful. And Natsu gets like super pissed off, and she's like, "I have nowhere left to go." And he's like, "The fuck's going on in these other guilds? Like, someone loses, like, that's not a guild." And it makes them cry, like that's completely unforgivable. And then Urza's like hanging out thinking about all this stuff she talked about with Millie and about Jalil and stuff, and Gray comes up and they have a conversation, and then they talk a little bit about Juvia and about Gray making up his mind about being with Juvia or not because he's not an idiot. And then she says the same thing. She needs to make up her same mind too, and that she needs to stop being so silly. And then we go to Arcadios, and they talk about how they have all 12 keys here, and it's awesome. And they got Lucy with 10, and then Yukino with the other, and something. And he starts saying Xerath a whole bunch of times. And then we get like this crazy attack on the Sabretooth like hotel, and Sting wakes up. He's like, "The fuck?" And then Rogue's like, "Get up, someone's attacking." And they run out, and they see dudes like beat the shit out of and stuff. And they see Natsu just kicking the shit out of Sabretooth guys, and he's like, "Tell me where your master is," and he busts into like the main hall. And then the Ziema guy is like, "What is your business, brat?" And he's like, "I'm going to challenge you, and I'm going to fight you, and if I beat you, you have to close down your whole fucking guild." And then that wraps up volume 33, but we get a special bonus page, and this is the issue with sexy naked Jenny, and we get her like fully naked, right? We don't say anything because obviously this is a teen. This is this is a manga for preteens, but we see her holding her naked chest. We don't see nips, and we see some ass, and then like we see our homies, some of our homies from the Fairy Tale Guild, some of the older, less popular characters, and they're like sneaking around. Like I think his name's Maeve, like Romeo's dad, and then another guy, and they're like they got the magazine and they're looking at it like secretly away from like their families, and then all of a sudden we see part of the issue is also all the naked men, and they're like, ugh! And then Romeo walks in, and is like, what the fuck, and then the guy walks in, and the wife is like, oh my gosh, because the magazine like push, it's not just like naked Jenny, it's like there's a magical naked Ichiya that pops out of the magazine, and then and then we get Frid, who's looking at the magazine as well, and he's drinking wine and being very pleased, so maybe he's gay. He's very happy about that. And that wraps up volume 33. So go ahead, like, share, subscribe, comment, and I'll catch you guys later. Bye.